those in favor? Item 14B is the Ministry of Community Safety Correctional Services announcement in regards to the use of conducted energy weapons or tasers. Chief, I know this is going to come up through the budget process, I would assume. I'm wondering, I think there's going to have to be some discussion at the board level, maybe even at a public level, in regards to just how much the public really wants this. I think we've used our taser, or had it pulled, 30 times last year. 34?
Yeah, since 2009, when we had the deployment, we've had it out 179 times. Now, that's not full deployment. That's just, it's been used as a negotiation tool. Upon arrival, a supervisor with a taser, someone references a taser, gets successful resolution.
So over the 5 years, it's averaging about 30 times a year.
Yeah, since 2007.
Yeah. How many frontline officers do we have, Chief?
We have 420 frontline members.
So it would be a minimum purchase of 420?
We actually have 143 members who are actively qualified to carry already. Qualified, yes.
And we have an additional 166 members in the new user course. Who
We
have to
looked
be
at,
qualified.
without preconceiving any programs, or even the purchase of it, if we're going to go down this way, I'm going to assume that this would require annual training by every officer,
Yes.
similar to their gun.
Yes.
So there's a cost involved in it. I'm going to assume it'll cost us somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million to get an updated taser. Like, because ours are, what, 3-4 years old?
7.
Is it like a BlackBerry?
They're almost,
There's a new
they're almost
model?
7 years old.
Oh, there's a new model.
We do rotate out every year, certainly in the inventory.
I'd like us to look at a whole bunch of options as opposed to just, okay, we're gonna go buy one for everybody. First of all, we have a full dress uniform officer. I don't know where the hell they would put it on their belt.
Some put it on their belt, some actually have it attached to their body armor.
Most uncomfortable in the world. But I'd like to look at a whole bunch of options, including maybe just having one in the car where both officers are trained. I don't know. There's lots of options that I think we have to investigate.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Deputy Burns assigned this to Inspector Dave Brown and June McDonald Jenkins from our Police Education Innovation Center. They are considering various options and the costings associated and the time and effort and training, including an iterative process whereby we would simply expand it to not only the supervisors, but those acting supervisors who are qualified, rolling it out to them. Also the notion of perhaps distributing it to our K-9 officers as well and building in a process, because the K-9 officers are rarely tied up in frontline calls. They're heading to all of those calls anyway. Not always is the dog deployed, so we're looking at that as a possibility. Doing it in very incremental steps, looking at what point in time we have the adequate amount of coverage, which may not necessitate having every frontline officer with a conducted energy weapon on their possession. As long as we've got the right deployment and taking into consideration factors like geography. In the north, we may deploy more tasers up in the north just to cover that ground and make sure they're available. Whereas in Oshawa, with enough supervisors and response units tactically trained and out there deployed, we may have a limited impact on additional units being required. So we're looking at all those options. We're looking at the time and training associated, even to the point that June was just speaking with me. The initial training right now is 8 hours. The ministry wants it to go up to 12 hours, and then the requalification from 4 hours, which is current, up to 8 hours. 8 hours for the requal. And the argument was when June checked with them, they wanted more judgmental training, situational awareness, judgmental training, making sure that it's the appropriate use. June's made a proposal to them saying, are you looking for outcomes in your training, or are you simply looking to pick a number for the sake of a number? So she's come back with some options for them to consider, and thank goodness we have her here to look at a very extensive online program where we would minimize that. They would have to show a certain level of competency before they could even go for the additional training. So they were very much amenable to our suggestions, and June is preparing something for the ministry to consider. But this notion that just doubling the requalification time without any sort of rationale behind it, simply saying we need more judgmental training. Well, our program may have enough judgmental training in it now. But there's such disparity amongst police services. We're looking at possibly standardizing the training itself, and us being a leader in that area. So congratulations to June for doing that in such short notice. But we are looking at a very iterative approach at the point where if we've got the right amount of coverage, we'll stop. And we'll bring that to the board, all of those different plans, and work through that proposal and the costings associated and the time and training and time off the road. We'll work through all of that, but we're well underway with a lot of those options now.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have that discussion because, you know, is this not the first year that OPC, Ontario Police College, has been like shut down because nobody's been there?
Actually canceled.
Budgets are not, there's not a flush amount of money flowing out there for any service. You know, I don't know, maybe Toronto will get the money from the province because of Toronto. But, you know, it's not how it works out here. And so.
And we're looking at options as well, in that it doesn't have to be individual assignment and usage. We could have a number of tasers available, have the individual cartridges assigned to the individuals, because the cartridges have indicators on them, like serial numbers. And so you would literally sign out the taser at CEW if there's another one out there. And that would be yours for the shift, you put it back. So it wouldn't have to be individual issue. We could have smaller numbers, but there's always the associated costs with checking them and maintaining them, and all of those pieces as well. So we're looking at all of those options as well.
I had a question earlier when you raised about what we're carrying. I was just going to ask you a question. Is the existing body armor capable of carrying? Because I understand there's some designs of them.
Yeah, I don't believe they've had to modify. Greg, you know, I don't think they've had to modify any equipment.
They have it set up so you can wear it in both locations.
Both locations. Yeah.
It's a secure part that would be of interest. Anyone else have any questions on this? So,
I just wanted to let the board know that June and Inspector Brown are coming to our leadership group on the 7th of October to look. They provided some additional information, a more comprehensive report and options at that time for our discussion, further discussion. So those things are in place. The one thing that I'm concerned with is, you know, all the services in the GTA having, you know, a multitude of different approaches to the TASER. I think we're going to have to pay attention and be in contact with OACP as to how some of these other services, because they're all going through the same process right now. I know while we do put out a statement that they are doing some community consultation, but it'd be interesting to know if the ministry themselves did some of that community consultation for different stakeholders here. PAO, for example, and the coroner's office have chimed into the conversation as well. So I think we're going to have to watch and keep an eye on provincially what's happening as we're developing our plans.
I don't disagree with that, Deputy, but the fact is just because Toronto does something doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. Just, they're making our decisions at the end of the day, but it's just something for us to do right now.
Okay. I'm going to assume that all these reports would come back during the budget process, if you're expecting to do anything next year.
Yeah, definitely, if it has a budget impact, it would be going into that conversation as to, so what's our plan for 14, how does it impact our budget,
And the long term.
and then long term.
Okay. Motion to receive the information, Robert, seconded by Bill. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Other business before we go into camera? Chief, maybe you or the deputies could answer